Welcome to Lockbox, a podcast providing real estate professionals with action items for success. My name is Jeffrey Broger, and I'm going to be your host. I'm the founder of two real estate marketing and tech companies, Steezy.digital and RealNurture.io. In this podcast, you'll learn from top 1% real estate and mortgage brokers the exact secrets to their success. Welcome to Lockbox. Welcome to Lockbox. My name is Jeffrey Broger, and I'm here today with Nico Ortega. Nico, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, tell our listeners who you are and where you're from.
Okay, so I'm Nico Ortega. I'm co-founder and CEO of Nuovo. It's a subscription type living opportunity for digital nomads. We're a company based in Miami. Previous to this, we were a short-term rental management company with operations in 6 US cities. We had over 250 properties. With COVID, obviously a lot of changes in our industry. We pivoted our business model. We changed after seeing how the digital nomad movement started becoming so mainstream. People were so comfortable with working from home, and home starting to become sort of this really didn't have to be anywhere specific, right? People noticed that they could work from wherever and live from wherever. So we decided to pivot our business, try to capitalize on that opportunity. And here we are.
Awesome. And Nuovo is spelled Nuovo for those of you interested in checking it out online. So I myself was a digital nomad and loved it. I mean, it used to be like Zoom meetings were not normal pre-COVID, right? People would ask me, oh yeah, you want to meet? And they're just across the county from me in San Diego or in Orange County. And I'd be like, yeah, let's jump on Zoom. And this is like after I had already run a business overseas and come back because I was so accustomed to it. But now all of a sudden with the pandemic, boom, everyone's online, everyone's on Zoom, everyone's used to this digital life. And so essentially like every person working in the world was a digital nomad for like 12 months, 18 months. So what a great time for you to really pivot and focus on that niche, because really nowadays you don't have to work close to where you live and vice versa. You can focus more on work-life play. Like, hey, I want to, for example, New York. I don't want to live in the city. I want to live outside of it near a lake and a golf course. That it would be impossible. It'd take me 3 hours to get to New York if I had to go to the office every day, but I don't. And I can still get all my work done, right? So this concept is now mainstream, like you said. And it's very interesting. I definitely want to dive into what you have going on today with Nuovo.
Yeah, 100%. We saw that obviously the pandemic brought so many changes to our lives. And the first one was that it actually forced us to go entirely digital, I think, for 2 months, 3 months, when literally the entire world was locked in their homes. Yeah. And people had to continue running their business, continue doing their things. We were all in very delicate situations, passing through tough times, but good things come out of crisis. After crisis comes an opportunity. And I think it just shed some light into this digital world or way of working and living that we hadn't really experienced in a mainstream way. And if you look at it now, the quality of life of digital nomads, it's much better, right? Let's say for people that live in New York or live in San Francisco, right? They're barely making ends meet with the skyrocketing rents that they needed to pay for a little shoebox of an apartment, correct? Now they can perform their same job. They're much happier with themselves, living in some other place that truly and really makes them happy to live there, right? I know a lot of my friends, at least I have a lot of friends that work. I went to school in Boston, in Bentley University, which is a finance and accounting college. So a lot of my friends obviously ended up in Wall Street in New York, right? And a lot of my friends, they were miserable because, yeah, they were making good money, but a bunch of that money was being spent on rent and their quality of life suffered. And they were always not envious, but in a sense, they saw me living in Miami, we're at the beach, and it was just so much more comfortable. And you had more space and you had more green space and so forth. So it really kind of opened the doors to being able to live and do whatever you want to do and do it better, actually, because you're much happier with yourself. You're much happier with your situation that allows you to perform a lot better in whatever it is that you do. That being said, this is not for everybody. I particularly couldn't be a digital nomad just because I'm 31 years old. I'm relatively young, but I already have two kids, right? So in my particular case, I do like to give them some stability, but there are other families, like complete families, that choose this. I don't know. There's this family, they have a YouTube channel called the Bucket List Family. They literally live around the world. They don't have a particular place. And it's awesome to see things like this. It's awesome to see more and more people adopting this. And it's not just single people. It's not just younger people. It's across the board. Obviously, there's a stronger focus on the younger generations. If you look at it this way, the total US workforce, I think around 56% of millennials are part of the total US workforce are working from home, and around 40 something of Gen Zs are also working from home. These are around 50 million people that really don't have like a physical attachment to anything, and they can basically live from wherever they want. So we're focusing particularly on that niche of clientele, targeting the younger generations, obviously with properties that people want more authentic lifestyles. They want to experience more. They want to live with if you're coming to live for Miami for a couple of months, you want to feel Miami, right? You don't want to go into a random hotel where everything is just like it is in the same hotel or the same line of hotels in somewhere else. So we try to give that identity.
You want to live like a local instantly.
Exactly. Live like a local and experience the locality. Become friends with the other people in the community that are probably experiencing the exact same thing as you and want to have that same experience of sharing with somebody else. So it's a pretty amazing time really to live in, with this sort of nomadic lifestyle, which kind of brings us back to prehistoric times and how the humans lived and traveled and started discovering the world in general. You know?
As nomads. Yeah. And with that being said, you didn't just arrive at this out of nowhere. So I'd love to learn how you got into the real estate industry in the first place, and what kind of made you think about, well, you know, we're doing these almost like property management for homeowners and helping them to do, you know, short-term rentals, and then it all pivoted. But like, what got you into it in the beginning, into real estate?
Yeah, so right after I graduated college, I really wanted to stay in Boston, find a job there. My girlfriend at the time, was living in Providence. So I wanted to stay over there and just continue my life over there. But I had a good job offer back home. I'm originally from Ecuador, to start working at my family's real estate development firm, where my brother was the general manager. And the project was super ambitious. It was to create, they were focused on middle income housing, and the project was to create the commercial real estate division. So I eventually went back home. I was already done with college for like a semester already. I just wanted to go back and start working, started getting my hands dirty, start learning. So I went back home, started this project. We built a shopping mall, and we purchased the land and started building an entire complex that had apartment, hotels, a parking building, offices, everything.
A master plan community. Yeah.
A master plan community. Yeah, exactly. In one of the most coveted areas of the largest city of the country. So it was fun. I was there for around 2.5 years. The shopping mall, we sold it at 90% completion to a group of investors. And then the other one, it was basically like a land flip. We bought the land, we developed the project in floor plans, and then we sold it off to another developer. At that point in time, country situation in Ecuador, you know, very Latin America type politics. So my brother and I decided to come to Miami. When we came to Miami, we obviously wanted to do something in real estate. We had already been working together for 3 years, and you know, it just made sense for us to partner. And we started looking into different things, and it just all kind of clicked. We started seeing how the sharing economy, in that sense, right now it's the creator economy, but in that time it was the sharing economy was blowing up. You know, you had Uber that was going crazy, you had Airbnb that was going crazy as well. These things were starting to pop up. And my brother, he had gone to high school here in Miami. So he had a good friend that owned a rental community, an apartment building. And we came up with the idea of saying, hey, rent us one apartment. We'll furnish it, we'll equip it, and then we'll rent it out via Airbnb. and try to make some money off of that until we figure out what we wanted to do. Both of us were pretty convinced that we wanted to be in some sort of real estate development, either house flipping or buying land and building something
Right.
in that nature. So we went to do this, and the building owners told us, we can't just rent you one apartment. For you to do this, it needs to be a minimum of 5. So okay, things started to get a little bit more serious, and we decided, you know what, let's give it a shot, right? So we came up with a capital, which my other brother funded us to do this, and we started operating those 5 apartments. One thing led to another. We quickly realized that product was very interesting for people. A lot of people from Latin America that were traveling with big families were coming in and were using our apartments and our products. And it quickly started growing. And from there, we just started growing in that property. We later recognized we can't have all of our eggs in one basket. We grew to another property. Then we grew into another area of the city. Then we grew a little bit further up north into Fort Lauderdale. Then we expanded into Orlando, then Atlanta, then Philadelphia, then Houston, then Portland. And we just basically started growing this. And, the company, by the beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic, we were managing about 250 units and had about $7-8 million in annual revenue, which was amazing. Then obviously the pandemic hit, and we are not a venture-backed company. So there weren't tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank, like a lot of companies. So we really had to be very careful on how we acted and what decisions we made in order to be able to survive the pandemic. Because on one side, we had people saying that the pandemic is only going to last for 2 weeks. It's going to pass, we're going to be locked here and then it's all good. And then there were other people that were saying that it was going to last like 4 years and all of the airlines were going to go bankrupt and it was going to be the end of the world and this and that. So really we had to make a decision.
Have you read the book, Who Moved My Cheese?
I have not.
It seems like you were the mouse that immediately started looking for new cheese. Read it. It's like it's like an afternoon read. It's super thin, super quick, but it's called Who Moved My Cheese, and it's awesome. So the pandemic happens. You have a $7-8 million business that you've built with your brothers over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and all of a sudden, boom, the rug is pulled out from under you. Oh my gosh, what do we do now? So now you're thinking critically with your brother, like, okay, well, we have this portfolio of properties so far. People aren't traveling as much, but people are working from home.
Yes.
Was that the epiphany moment?
I'm going to admit, I would have loved it to be like right away, but it wasn't right away. It wasn't right away. It's not like it just clicked. So at that point in time, what we decided on doing was really, we felt it literally the first day after the Trump travel ban announcement, because we had a bunch of money that was just like chargebacks and refund requests and all of this. It just came like a wave, a tsunami of requests like we couldn't handle. So we felt it right away. And we were in the brink of collapsing when we decided, you know what, we need to do something about this. We need to take action. This was 12 hours in, literally. We need to do something, because if we don't do anything and we try to wait it out, I'm 100% sure that we're not going to survive this, right? If we do something, there's a 10% chance we might get out of this, right? So we started finding ways to do it. We started speaking to our landlords, which, we had a little bit of everything. We had the supportive ones, the ones that understood our conundrum or dilemma in a sense, because, we had leases with them. We had to pay them. But on the other end, it wasn't just that we weren't getting any new business or money coming in. It was that there was money coming out, because people were, we had 90 days booking in advance. So all of the people were requesting that money back. And there were others that weren't so comprehensive. We managed to reach like a good medium. We let go of some of those properties. We stayed in some of those properties and changed them and shifted them to management agreements in order to withstand the first 3 months that were brutal. And as we started evolving, and as we started seeing people working from home and more companies saying, okay, everybody can work from home 100% of the time if that's what they choose to do, and people leaving their corporate offices and the digital nomad movement starting to appear. It's not something that we like on the first day. The digital nomad movement is going to be here, right? No, it was like it was like a group of things that started to come together, and we started
Sure.
recognizing.
Yeah. So it was a couple months in, and then now it's May, June 2020, something like that. And you started to see the writing on the wall that, whoa, we could pivot to this new model. So then you pivot. And I'm curious now where Nuovo is today. Are you raising capital? Are you in a process where you have, like 1,200 properties now? Like where are you at today now?
No, so we actually scaled down post COVID.
Okay.
Just because we needed to be able to withstand this. And in order to withstand it, we needed to be in the most basic of
Lean.
lean,
Lean.
as lean as possible. So we scaled down. Right now, we only have presence in Miami. But the beauty of it is we have all of the experience in the world in growing in other markets. We've grown in markets similar to Miami. We've grown in markets that are completely different to Miami, different time zones even.
Mm-hmm.
We know which markets we want to go to and which markets we don't want to go to. So that has given us a bunch of clarity into what we want to do. And that's what we're doing right now. Right now, a couple of weeks ago, we launched an equity crowdfunding campaign through Republic, which we launched a couple of weeks ago. It's been doing fantastic. We have around 200 investors and about $65,000 raised. And the idea is to use those funds in order to be able to continue to grow our portfolio, not just in South Florida, but throughout the United States and eventually in Latin America as well, to be able to offer it to digital nomads.
What I really like about the model is it's extremely lean from a capital standpoint, because it seems like you're just coming to lease agreements with property owners. You don't have to acquire the property. So not only do you not have to acquire that asset until you're ready, but you're just paying a lease with maybe like first month down and a deposit. And then month one, you're profitable, because maybe month two, if you need to go, add some things to it. But month 1 or 2, you're profitable, because when these things are renting out for, $5,000, $6,000 a month, whatever, you're paying 2. Month 1, you're profitable. You have no debt. All you're in is a lease agreement. So the ability to scale up and scale down with relative ease and low risk makes it pretty attractive from an investment standpoint.
It's extremely attractive, and even more. That's how we started our business in the first place. One of the worries that we had, not one of the worries, but one of the hypotheses we had when we were looking for investors initially, was we always told them the fact that we have leases and we're not purchasing the properties makes it so that whenever there is an economic downturn or something of that nature, we can easily scale up and down depending on what we need.
Yeah.
And we proved that.
Let the leases lapse. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And we proved that with COVID. We were able to scale down, and right now we're scaling back up again. But even more, it's even leaner now, our business model, because we're not entering into leases anymore. From a risk or liability standpoint, we feel, we're still responsible for paying those leases. And it's usually the minimum is a 1-year contract. And we don't, there is the risk in a sense of another shutdown, another lockdown, another wave. I don't know. I think we're like the 8th or 9th wave now, but another wave that can sort of shake things up a bit. So we decided to shift towards revenue management agreements, which we make a little bit less money per booking in a sense, but the counterpart, and we don't take on the liability or the risk of the lease, but on the counterpart, we provide the landlord with the upside of the short-term rent versus just renting it to market rent to you directly on a fixed 13-month or 12-month lease. You know what I mean? Yep. So we provide them that upside. And what we've seen in our experience over the past it's going to be 6 years now since we started the company, is that we generate around 2 to 2.5 times as much revenue as market rent using the short-term rental and digital nomad living model. And that in turn becomes between a 15 to a 20% more net income on that particular unit for the owner, obviously, because there are more costs associated to the operation. So we allow the owner of that property to be able to participate on that. And, At times it's been asked to us, the owner can just put it up on Airbnb and make it happen. And yeah, you can put up a property on Airbnb, and a lot of people that do it individually. But when you start handling more and more units and a bulk of units in a single unit, there's different things that benefit from it. So one of the things that we developed was our revenue management system. It's basically being able to sell the right room at the right price to the right person and at the right time. right? So it's being as efficient as you possibly can in the rental and what you're charging your customers to be able to get the customer the best available deal, and for you as an owner manager to be able to get the best return possible. So it takes account, it's a technology that takes into account everything from internal KPIs to external KPIs, right? So it pulls information from airports as how many flights are coming in, how many people are traveling, what our competitors are pricing each single day and how their changes are doing, what demand is looking like, what events are going on in the city. And then on the internal side, it takes into account where our sales space is, what our current occupancy is, what our current ADR is. ADR stands for average daily rate. And it also takes into account what our budget is, what we're searching for, what we're looking for, what occupancy we're doing. And it shifts and adjusts our prices on the daily. So we are able to offer the best possible deal to the guests coming in, and we are able to get the most out of that property return wise. I don't know if I explained.
Is that proprietary?
Yes. And we have a theory because neither my brother nor I we're not engineers. We're not coders. We're not developers. If we had a theory when we started this company, obviously we were getting into a very technology heavy industry with the sharing economy. So when we started the company, we said, if there's something that's already built out there, we need to leverage it, right? We need to leverage the tools that are out there because there are people that are experts in what they do and can bring us a lot of value. So that's what we started doing. We started adding more and more software to be able to make our business more efficient. And when it came that we were expanding outside of Miami, which was the market that you live here, so you get that grasp and you get that feel of the city and how it acts and how it performs, right? But as we started to expand, from a real estate background, we ran our numbers very thoroughly, right? So we knew exactly what the next city needed to perform, like which was Orlando. And as we started operating it, we quickly realized that the numbers that were in the underwriting were not what we were looking at in reality. And we knew that the underwriting wasn't the problem, but the problem was in the actual operation and the actual revenue management and what we're being able to get out of the property. So at that point in time, we started, we hired consultants from the hotel industry. We hired consultants from the traditional vacation rental industry. We hired software from the hotel industry, and we hired software from the traditional vacation rental industry. And what we started seeing was that as we were running all of these strategies up to like right next to our own strategy, we were still outperforming them. And we noticed, okay, how can we still be outperforming them and not reaching the numbers that we want to reach? So that's when we decided to just go deep in and say, okay, let's hire somebody that comes and works for us, an engineer, and he's a data scientist and machine learning expert. He was actually my brother's professor in his MBA. So he came on, he caught onto our problem like this, and just we started working on it, started measuring all of these KPIs and things, and it started becoming something much more interesting and much more profound than what we were seeing. And what we started seeing as we started developing this is that the system or the algorithm shed light into things that we were not noticing to the clear eye, because either we were not quick enough to react to, or we just didn't understand them or didn't see them the way they were, because it was Orlando, even though it's a 3-hour car ride from Miami, it's a completely different market, different demographics, different seasonality, different competitors, different rate types, and so forth than Miami. So we went full in, we developed this, and right now this system is basically what runs our company rate-wise. It's a proprietary technology. It's called Nostradamus. And when we started implementing that, our revenues increased 20% just like that. It's amazing.
That's awesome. And that does create a lot more depth to the project in and of itself, because when you're creating stuff like that to accomplish your revenue goals easier, more efficiently, maximizing profit, that's the type of stuff that you can sell your company later. And that proprietary algorithm is what is worth the, 100-time multiplier of revenue. So that's really exciting and awesome to hear the journey of the different hurdles along the way, the different pivots that you've made, the real estate background, understanding we don't know coding, we're going to hire consultants, we're going to borrow software, we're going to then pull in this data scientist, and now you're here today. raising capital, super lean. And, I admire it. I'm an entrepreneur myself and we're about the same age. So, I definitely want to support in any way that I can. One thing that I want to ask you based on your entrepreneurial journey is, what is the single most important action that you've taken on a daily basis that has attributed most to your success?
I would say, well, it's a combination of things actually.
Okay.
But obviously in my life, COVID has changed everything, especially in my adult life. So I would say, first of all, to be grateful for what you have, not take the little things for granted. Luckily for me, I know a lot of people, well, not luckily, but I know a lot of people that suffered greatly with personal losses with COVID. In my intimate circle or family, we didn't have any losses. And there were cases, there were positives and so forth, but I personally never had it. My wife had it, but very mild. So we really didn't have a negative experience with that. So I wouldn't, but I know people that have gone through terrible times with this. So just be grateful for that. Take every moment, appreciate everything, appreciate the little things. Time with my kids, for example, is invaluable to me right now. And I think that COVID, in a sense, has changed a lot of the ways we see things. That's personally. And then on the more professional level is keep grounded, keep focused, never give up, and understand that we're on a journey, that everybody has their own journey, that difficult times will come. But all of this hard work, all of this grinding, all of this preparation is for when the opportunity meets itself, the opportunity comes and you'll be able to capitalize it. That small moment of opportunity. I've been talking recently to a lot of mentors, a lot of good friends, and we've been talking about how their success came about. And really what they've told me is, and this quote comes up a lot. It's like luck happens or luck occurs when preparation meets opportunity. And really it is just keep grinding, keep going at it, that your time will come. Your moment of your eureka moment will come. You just have to be ready for when it comes and be prepared. That's basically sort of the lessons that I've learned throughout this journey that is nowhere near ending.
Yes, absolutely. And you definitely show wisdom beyond your years. You mentioned your mentors. That's definitely how I have been able to stand on the shoulders of giants and distill decades of their experience into days or into hours, and then be able to leverage that and make a greater impact and take companies farther. And so really, I can tell that, you lean on those mentors, you ask consultants for advice, you're open to being able to get somewhere faster by just, paying for some coaching or having someone that's already accomplished what you want to accomplish in your life, and having them shed light on, your journey and help you in any way that they can. So really value that. I think it's a common theme with a lot of successful entrepreneurs. I'm curious if there's a question that I should have asked you, or if there's anything that you'd like to elaborate on from earlier.
Well, I think I've pretty much covered everything on Wobble, on what we're doing, on what we're building. It's been a journey, and I feel like we're at a time, or we're at an opportunity in all of our lifetimes where things happen on the daily, right? So things can just next second change, next second become huge. So yeah, no, I think I've covered pretty much everything. I invite everybody, all of the listeners here, to go visit our Republic campaign. The link, it's fairly simple. It's www.republic.co/nuovo. That's NUOVO. Take a look at the campaign. Give me your thoughts. Send me your feedback. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Shoot me an email. Whatever you feel. I appreciate the feedback. If it's your thing, go ahead, throw a couple of bucks there. You can invest as little as $100. If it's not your thing, I appreciate it. Share it with somebody that you might like. Send me a DM through LinkedIn, Instagram, or whatever. I'm always there, happy to help, happy to receive feedback, and just try to make this something better and bigger than it already is.
Awesome. Yeah, it's an exciting project, and you guys are definitely onto something. So I'll probably run it by some of my investor friends, just see if they're interested, because honestly, being at the I'm not going to say ground floor because you guys have already come a long way, but being in the early stages of a startup like this with some proprietary algorithm and some significant recurring revenue in the past, like, that's kind of like the investor dream. So I'll definitely see if I get any bites and would love to help out in any way that I can. So
that would be amazing.
I appreciate you. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you. I appreciate having you on. Thank you for keeping my listeners on the cutting edge of different technology that's out there today, innovating the way that real estate is used, because, for property owners, this is such a unique way for them to be able to maximize their revenue and have a company like yours manage it for them. And so huge opportunities out there. And with the new digital world that we live in today, this is the type of stuff that becomes possible. So I commend you for being on the cutting edge.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you for having me, and I appreciate the kind words as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you want to accomplish your real estate goals, then I highly suggest downloading my free Ultimate Real Estate Goal Setting Framework. The link is in the description of the show, and it will help you break down your annual income goal into the amount of phone calls, appointments, or open houses you need in order to achieve that goal. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.